What does this day bring, Ata?
Sun all day.
Actually, my app says it's going to rain at noon.
Sun.
Rain!
Sun!
Rain!
Listen, I am going to buy my own boat. Who is with me? Give me my fish.
Hey, you, down here in the bucket.
Me?
Do you see another old man looking at me?
Stop talking and go back to being a fish.
Come and dead me.
I will.
If I jump out of this bucket, I will slap you with my fin. Slap, slap, slap.
Akwele.
You have to stroke it, then poke it.
You want to join?
Yes.
Do I get a wish?
No.
You just talk.
I'm sorry. Is that not like cool enough for you?
He would like to apply for a loan.
We can only consider a 3-year payback plan.
You think I will die in 3 years?
No.
Oh, she paused.
Papa.
Catfish is very rare. How much?
Priceless.
I need a message first.
The message is, eat me.
We are screwed. Trust me, gambling is like swimming. It's in my DNA.
Where is school?
I miss his Jesus fish.
One thing about being Olu is we always value the ones we love.
Wow. So, one trip to Accra, and the man has become a poet.
Shut up.
Sorry, it looks like, let me take this again. It looks like my microphone was turned off. I apologize for that. Let me quickly, yeah, so let me take it all over again. Pardon me for that. So from a legendary director's creative block to, pardon me, from a legendary director's creative block in the face of our dystopian reality to a Somali-Minnesotan first historical feature film debut and the debate, a heated debate about the state of the Ghana film industry. We are covering the stories that define global cinema today. Welcome to the Film Mandate. And in today's episode, James Cameron has confirmed that work is being done on the new Terminator film, and he's concerned as to whether he'll be able to make it dystopian enough. And also, Mohammed Sheikh is working on his first international feature film, and also will be delving into the debate that is all over as to whether Ghana film industry is dead or not. We'll be taking a look at all these stories and more right here on the Film Mandate. And beginning with this very first, this episode, I'm sorry to bring to you, to be the bearer of bad news. I'm sure if you are that of a film aficionado, I'm sure you've heard of it. Or even if you've not heard of it, it's very likely you've chanced upon this story. And I'm sorry that I'm bringing this bad news, but it wasn't long ago when the Terrence Stamp, the actor who was known for playing General Zod in the Christopher Reeve's film, Superman film, passed. And now we also have the passing of Robert Bradford. And let me just read something little captured in the Guardian News online paper. It says that Robert Redford, giant of American cinema, dies aged 89. Redford achieved huge critical and commercial success in the 60s and 70s with a string of hits, including Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid, The Way We Were, and The Sting, before becoming an Oscar-winning director. And that is him, he's done so many things for the world of cinema. And let me just read this little Robert Redford, star of Hollywood classics including Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Sting, and All the President's Men, has died at age 89. In a statement, his publicist Cindy Berger said the actor died on Tuesday at his home at Sundance in the mountains of Utah, the place he loved, surrounded by those he loved. He will be greatly missed, Berger said, adding that Redford's family are requesting privacy. And it is unfortunate with regards to his passing, seeing his massive contribution, not just to American cinema, but I must even say to the world cinema. I'm sure a lot of people who may not even have heard of him might have heard of Sundance Film Festival, and he is the founder of that festival, and that has helped, launch the careers of so many, filmmakers, and has helped groomed a lot of filmmakers into the world of cinema that we have today. So his contribution to the world is indeed massive, and we can't describe how much we'll miss his presence in the film industry, I must admit, but he has really, contributed massively to the world of cinema, and we really appreciate him for all that he has done. To all the fans, to all the loved ones, and especially his family, my condolences to all of you, and may his soul rest in perfect peace. Yeah, so that is it. Pardon me, my microphone was turned off, so I had to, go over all this again. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll be delving into our very first story. And in our very first story, James Cameron has stated that he, as of 2024, actually, he did confirm that he was working on a sequel to the Terminator, another installment in the Terminator film series. And he spoke about how, with the advent of AI and all that, how he's looking at making sure the story is written such a way that it feels fresh and different from the previous ones that have not performed well, apart from his first two installments that redefined that particular franchise and even sci-fi in general. Well, in recent times, particularly just yesterday, an article dropped that hinted as to his struggle, his dilemma in churning out a script that he feels would suit the time and be dystopian enough. Well, this is what he has to say in the FandomWire website, and I want to read it briefly. He says that James Cameron confirms new Terminator movie, but isn't sure if he can make it dystopian enough. And this is what he has to say. Despite the next Terminator movie, James Cameron reveals his struggle regarding its direction in the current climate. And this is what he has to say. The Terminator movie James Cameron helmed embedded itself into the cultural zeitgeist, forever changing the way audiences perceived sci-fi, particularly AI. Decades later, Cameron is back at it again as he will be penning the script for the Terminator 7 after the lukewarm reception to Tim Miller's Dark Fate, which derailed the franchise. Below are the movies directed by Cameron in the Terminator series. So Terminator 1, which received 100% on the Rotten Tomato score with an 8.1 IMDb rating and a box office of $78.3 million. Terminator 2 Judgment Day received a 91% Rotten Tomato scores with an 8.6 IMDb rating and made $517.7 million. And this is the key to the entire article. It says that, however, Cameron, who tends to create iconic pieces of media whenever he sets his mind to it, confessed that he's struggling to start the writing process due to the fear of getting outdone by the current reality. I've been unable to get started on that very far because I don't know what to say that won't be overtaken by real events. We are living in a science fiction age right now, in a world where Skynet and the Handmaid's Tale no longer feel too dystopian as a result of the current AI and political climate, which can be easily mistaken for an onion headline. Cameron's fears are justified. So that is quite an interesting development we have this instant, and he is not lying at all. Looking at the fact that we currently live in the age of AI and even robotics have taken such a massive leap with regards to what is happening now. So obviously, his statement as to being in a dilemma of crafting a story that will be dystopian, that will be miles ahead in the future, is something that I can understand him with. And it's not like he's having a creative block, not being able to write a story. He can write a story, but I think the challenge is that how can you write a story that will feel science fiction-y enough in the era that we find ourselves, where science fiction seemingly even now is a reality as we face today. So it is indeed, it's a challenge for such a filmmaker who always wants to be leaps and bounds ahead of the time with regards to his story, bringing something fresh and new that people haven't thought of. A dystopian fictional reality that hopefully it will take quite some time for time to catch up with it. And unfortunately, it looks like we are in an era where we now have flying cars, we have science fiction, AI is a reality. So, and we have robots in existence today. So, how would a story which has robots in it and super intelligence or AI intelligence feel very different and refreshing in today's reality? And that is something we all know James Cameron would prefer to be leaps and bounds ahead. But it's unfortunate that is indeed the central conflict that he is struggling with at the moment. And I can really understand him, because for whatever story, if you're going to go with the current story or plot of Terminator as it is, you are likely to not present anything new or refreshing as compared to the times we find ourselves in. So Terminator as it stands now presents a very challenging block. It's quite challenging creatively to be able to create something very new and dystopian enough to be able for people to be wowed by. The wow factor now is no more with regards to what we have now. However, knowing James Gunn, I'm sure he's going to take his time to craft something that would, circumvent all these challenges he's facing. But indeed, it is a challenge. His quote says it all, that I don't know what to say that won't be overtaken by real events. And as we find ourselves in this era now, almost every month, there is a new version of AI that does something that is mind-blowing compared to what we knew, just even a week ago. So all the time there's something new coming up, and it's sometimes even very difficult to catch up with the number of AI models that are available at this very moment. So it is indeed something very a difficult terrain to navigate nowadays, particularly if you're a director who is more into science fiction storytelling, as we have James Cameron being. So indeed, it's going to be quite a difficult thing to navigate 40 years after the first one was released. And the first one was released in 1984. So now, how does he make it different and feel different? And I think he did say something about, which is, so he is looking at perhaps working on a story that will feel entirely different, may not even perhaps have any connection to do with what we've seen of Sarah O'Connor and the T9 robots. Is it T9, T7, T900 or T700 robots and all that. So this is something that is a real struggle. If you understand the Terminator films, you can be rest assured that it is not an easy thing to navigate, looking at the fact that robots are nothing, they are they are something normal now. So how do you bring up something that will feel entirely different in an era where now we are talking about UAPs with the aliens being, um, uh, with the now not being a rumor again as to whether it is alien as it is or something different. Well, we live in an era where now all these science fiction ideas that we saw in films are actually the realities of today. So it presents a difficult challenge for him, and I must even say for every other creative personnel within the era or within the area of science fiction, or telling a story in science fiction, or anything fictional that has to do with in a dystopian era. So it will be quite a challenge to see how he's going to navigate this thing, particularly in this 2020s that we find ourselves in, whether he'll be able to pull it off. Well, if there is anyone who can pull it off, I must admit that it will be James Cameron. So for him to have this challenge, it is indeed a big hurdle for us all to see how we can overcome it. But I'm sure at the right time, when he's able to crack the right story, he will be able to lead us into his vision of what the new Terminator 7 would feel like and would possibly be a box office hit as well. So let me know what you think with regards to how a storyteller like James Cameron can stay relevant and impactful in the face of all this science fiction reality we find ourselves in. Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comment section below. So moving on from the very first story of a legendary, film director who has won his Oscars and everything. Well, we come to a new segment that I created that I call the Oscar Minute. And with this, what I do is to make known nations who are submitting their films for the best international feature category for the Oscars come 2026. So we'll be heading to Iran, who have presented their feature film for the best international feature in the Oscars. And let's take a quick read at it. So it says that Oscars, Iran picks Cause of Death Unknown as best international feature submission. Ali Zanegar's thriller follows a group of men traveling through the desert who have to decide what to do when one of them dies suddenly and they discover a huge sum of cash on him. That's quite an interesting story. It says that Iran's official selection committee has picked Ali Zanegar's thriller Cause of Death Unknown to represent the country for the 2026 Oscar race in the Best International Feature category. The drama follows a group of strangers traveling through Iran's Lat Desert. When one of them suddenly dies in the middle of the night, emergency services refuse to send an ambulance because the cause of death hasn't been verified by a doctor. Searching the body, the men find no ID but a lot of money and are forced to confront a moral and ethical dilemma. Do they bring the body to a hospital or bury the corpse and split the cash? Cause of Death Unknown premiered at the Shanghai Film Festival in 2023, where it won the Best Cinematography Prize for cameraman Davood Malik Husseini. But the film has a low international profile and is unlikely to make the Oscar shortlist, much less secure a nomination. A much higher profile Iranian film, Jafar Panahi's Cannes Palme d'Or winner, It Was Just an Accident, has made France's 5-film shortlist of potential Oscar contenders and will be a near shoe-in should it be selected. Nyon acquired the movie out of Cannes and is positioning it for an awards run. The other French Oscar contenders are Richard Linklater's Nouvelle Vague, Rebecca Zlotowski's Jodie Foster's Tara, A Private Life, and Hugo Bienvenu's animated feature Arco and Hafsia Hezi, the little sister. So yeah, so that is a cause of death unknown, an Iranian film that has been presented to the Oscars for the category of the best international feature film. So there you have it for the Oscar Minute. Thanks, and let me know what you think about this particular segment that I've created, whether it is informative enough, it's good enough, whatever your thoughts, kindly let me know, and I'll very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. So continuing our stories for today's episode, we'll move from James Cameron's dilemma to a filmmaker on the block who hails from Minnesota. I mean, he is a Somali-Minnesotan who has been in the industry working on several short films and also has worked on some documentaries. But now he has turned his focus on making his first feature film, and his concern is to correct the narrative that is seen about Somalians and the piracy, with the conversation that seems that every time there is a piracy, the attribute of piracy to Somalian is what he wants to deal away with. So let's read the article that is article published in the Sahan Journal that covers this particular story. So briefly, it says that filmmaker Mohammed Sheikh challenges Somali stereotypes with debut feature Barni. Aleel Films founder said he wanted to be a filmmaker to combat false negative narratives of Somali people in mainstream media. And that is him in your short adjusting light. So it says that this story comes to you from, a Somali-Minnesotan filmmaker is boosting authentic Somali representation by making his first feature film, shot in Djibouti, with a cast and crew from around the world. Aleel Films founder Mohammed Sheikh said he wanted to be a filmmaker to combat false negative narratives of Somali people in mainstream media. If you are watching TV and you have absolutely no idea about Somali people, and the first thing that you watch is a pirate or somebody who's stealing or somebody who's doing damage to the society, then your image of Somali people would be that, said the director and writer and director. In order for us to coexist and to have a mutual understanding of who we are, we really need those authentic stories to come out of the community. The movie is about 3 teenagers in rural Somalia looking for a lost girl named Barni, which is also the name of the film. Sheikh's original plan was to shoot Barni in Minnesota. He was born in a refugee camp in eastern Ethiopia to Somali parents, and he and his family moved to Minnesota in 2013. So yeah, that is it. Let me just end the reading here. So that is quite an interesting development, I must admit, and I like his passion to correct the narrative about his people, about Africans. And I must say that that is the challenge we've had, particularly concerning African films, where because we don't have the leverage and the exposure, the global exposure to push certain narratives, and even let alone the resources to shoot a film with such high production value, sometimes it becomes quite difficult to be able to tell our story the best way we can, because regardless of whether or not Somalians have pirates that trouble people on the sea, every other country have people that are engaged in certain vices that unfortunately it sort of tarnishes the image of the country they hail from. However, the challenge is that sometimes a number of the people within a particular demographic are always stereotyped to negatively, and that in a way goes a long way to color, sort of rose color people's perspective of them. And that has been the challenge of a lot of portrayal of quote unquote Africans on screen. And I'm happy that Mohammed Sheikh is going all out to ensure that this stereotyping of his people, the Somalians, are turned around. And what better way to do that than to do it through a film, a feature film, which a lot of people gravitate to. Just like song and sports, film also happens to be one of the universal language that a lot of people would rally behind and watch. And that even helps create a dialogue concerning topics that ordinarily people would not even know about. So I feel like this particular project he's embarking on indeed is a good initiative to bring much needed attention to the stereotypical roles of Somalians engaged, said to be always engaged in certain vices. And just as I've already said, every community, wherever it may be, or every country have people who engage in certain vices. But the question would be, how well and vocal can you be in telling your own narrative rather than others telling your narrative for you? Because it looks like most people, when they want to tell somebody's narrative, they only focus on the negative parts rather than focusing on the good parts as well. So I'm glad that Mohammed Sheikh is embarking on this first international feature of his, Barni, which actually he shot in January of 2024. But because of funding, he couldn't do it the way he couldn't finish it on time to release. However, prior to even shooting it, he was contemplating as to where he wants to shoot it, whether he shoots it in Minnesota, in America, or Djibouti. But however, he settled on the latter, and in settling on the latter, he received tremendous help from several quarters that ordinarily he wouldn't have had should he have shot it in Minnesota. And one of the advantages he had was that there was an Arab funding that lent the support to him, and even the Somalian governing council for film also lended the help by helping, house the actors, and the actors consisted of Somalian natives. So that helped him. But he was also fortunate to have received the help from, filmmakers from around the world who didn't know each other, and they came to help him or support his project and shoot this very production. Fortunately for him, with the Djiboutian government, being involved, it did really help to make him achieve this. And this film will be premiering in December at the Red Sea International Film Festival. And I'm happy that his film is finally getting the light of day after being shot in 2024. So almost 2 years when he shot the film, this film would be showcased in Saudi Arabia at the Red Sea International Film Festival. And I'm excited about this development for Mohammed Sheikh, because a win for an African, honestly, is a win for every African. And I like it when people's passion projects get a light of day to be told, and I'm excited for that. So, looking from his very own story, I can understand how he would want to, be a voice to reckon with. And I'm glad he is a voice, because he was born in a refugee camp in Ethiopia, and he had his parents really settled in Minnesota in 2013, and he's done several wonderful projects. He did a documentary project called "The Forgotten Ones," unveiling the opioid effect, and he did this documentary covers the addiction of some people who are addicted to drugs, and how using this particular documentary as a tool to help people, find the necessary help, and also deal with the issue, of addiction, and how that can be, can be dealt with in a community where they don't want to talk about those who are addicted to drugs. So I'm happy that he is, having his voice told in a different, front, but this time in a feature film, and I'm happy concerning that. And his focus of changing the narrative about his people is what excites me, because if you don't tell your own story the way it is, others will tell your story differently and be painted in a light that you would not like. And I'm happy an African is embarking on this and getting it done the best way possible. So congrats to Mohammed Sheikh for embarking on this journey, and I hope he's able to tell the story in the best way he possibly can. So let me know what you think, and this particular project he's doing, would it be enough to change the narrative about Somalians, and I mean the way Somalians have been painted in that light that he wants to change? Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comments section below, and it will be very much appreciated. So moving on from the story of Mohammed Sheikh, we are now going to delve into another story that, it keeps on coming up year after year, and it is something that hopefully I think it should change, and that has to do with the state of the Ghana film industry. And the debate has always been whether do we have a film industry or not? Is the film industry dead or not? And let me wade into these waters. I think that our industry is not dead. It is not dead at all. I mean, the idea of an industry being dead means that nothing should function, nothing should work completely. However, if it is working, we cannot ascribe it to being dead. So hopefully, I'm praying that we would change the narrative as to whether we have an industry or not. We do have an industry. However, I think the challenge we have particularly is the fact that, yes, aside all the challenges, all the troubles we have with our industry, the main challenge we have is always looking at comparing ourselves with that of other well-oiled film industry, which arguably it should be the case. We should always aspire to achieve the status of industries that are functioning well. We should do that. But I think that we are so bent on looking at what is not working rather than looking at what we can do with what is working to solve the problem of the aspects that are not working. I think that is where the challenge is. And if you've been following me severally on this channel for a number of episodes that I've done, I think the problem we have a lot in this nation is not diagnosing the challenge of the industry well and taking requisite steps to solve them. And I think that the reason why perhaps it was even for this same reason that the National Film Authority was established a couple of years ago. And admittedly, I think, yes, perhaps a lot more could be done. But I know that the challenges they are facing is quite Herculean. It was recent when the board chairman of the NFA did say that the target of the NFA particularly is to, now for one of their goals is to ensure that they will be able to distribute Ghanaian films to about 1% of the population. And a number of people laughed at this initiative, but the reality of the matter is that we do not even have enough cinemas. And even for the cinemas we do have, the number of people who go to the cinemas are few, because if we are to consider all the factors that could possibly hamper the films to reach a number of people, finances is a key factor. And aside finances, you're also looking at proximity of the cinemas and access to internet for those who would want to use streaming platforms. If they live in places where the internet access is a problem, they cannot even have access to the films that are on digital platforms. So there are a number of factors that would hamper the reach of Ghanaian films or Black Star films to a number of people, even in Ghana, let alone Ghanaians outside Ghana. So that indeed is some of the challenges we need to look at. So as to whether the Ghana film industry is dead or not, I don't think it is. It is not dead at all. And I think that what we need to really pay attention to is what we did wrong in the past that has led us to where we are today. And perhaps what we are still doing today that is causing or that is not helping the industry to grow to the extent we want it to. And one of the things we should keep in mind is that in as much as government has a role to play, I think private individuals or private companies have a major role to play in it even than government. My argument has always been that the state of our industry is as a result of not having this properly functioning factors. The first one being implementation of policies the way it ought to. And I'm glad that certain aspect of it is being, enforced, rating of films and licensing, having permits before you shoot, particularly if you're a foreigner coming in, and all those things are in place. But a lot more ought to be done. So that is one of the things we need to look at. Also, secondly, we are looking at the non-existent or perhaps the scanty existence of infrastructure in the country. As it stands now, we don't have enough cinemas all over the country, properly working cinemas that are networked so that when a film releases on the opening weekend, it can be distributed through to all the films, so to all the centers or cinemas in the country, but we don't have enough. And then lastly, data. There isn't even enough data to pinpoint as to where we are falling short. So most often than not, when we talk about the industry being dead or the industry is, whatever description we give to it, we don't have the requisite data to back even the statements we make. I'm sure there are some data, pockets of data here and there, but are they consolidated enough for even policymakers to take a critical look at it and say, okay, this is what we need to do? And I think these are the challenges we are facing. And why this topic? I brought this topic because one of Ghana's prominent filmmakers, Kofi Asamoah, waded into the conversation when he did say that the fact that there is the absence of some actors or we don't see certain actors frequently on the scene doesn't mean the industry is not working. It is working. And yes, I think the challenge with that aspect has always been that for so long a time, we always see the known faces and prominent in certain movies, and then the new faces are not given that much exposure compared to the old faces. So maybe that's the reason. But even as it stands now, new faces are being noticed every day. So even with the absence or not, the industry is still in existence and is working. And also quite recently, during the promotion of the film, The Fisherman, you had Madam Dorothy Konedu and Shadrach interviewed at a Rainbow FM, and they were asked the same question. And I feel like over and over again, I think we should understand that I don't know why this conversation of Ghana film industry being dead is always being perpetrated in the media space. And the reason why I'm saying that is this: if the film industry is dead, then obviously films will not even be produced. Listen, we may not have a well-oiled, functioning industry as other countries do. I agree to that. But we do have a semblance of an industry that is functioning, however, albeit not as well-oiled as we would have hoped it should work. But we do have an industry. So I think the argument should be moved away from, or the debate should be moved away from whether the industry is dead or not, to what are the aspects of the industry that are not working and what can we do to solve it, whether with or without government's help. Because whether we like it or not, we are in the industry. It is our responsibility to do what we can to help it one way or the other. And I'm glad that I think just yesterday, the National Film Authority had a National Film Dialogue, and I wasn't able to attend, but I hope that whatever discussions that went on, it won't just be talk alone, but it will be more of action, because that is what we need to make it happen. So there are a number of things we need to put in place, and that some of the things we need to put in place is that these three factors are brought on board, making sure that policies are implemented. They are not just enacted at the parliament, but when it is enacted, it should be enforced. It should be enforced. Secondly, infrastructure. We need infrastructure, but sometimes I would understand why even investors wouldn't want to come into our sector of the business, because there isn't enough data to prove whether if he should invest even in building cinemas, how well is he going to recoup his monies, and as to when will he recoup his money. And these are discussions that needs to be had, to solve the challenges we face in the industry. As to the death of the industry, the Ghana film industry is not dead, not at all. It's not working as well as we would have hoped it is, compared to, if you are comparing it to, let's say, even Hollywood, because they have the structures, and even with Hollywood, they still have their own challenges. So challenges exist everywhere. The challenge we have now is that how can we look at the challenges and solve it? We need to find ways and means of dealing with the challenges. And the challenges should be our own Ghanaian-made solutions. Because whether we like it or not, we cannot take the solutions that other countries have made for themselves and apply it verbatim and hope it's going to work. It may not work as we would hope it should, but if we look at all the solutions they have used to solve their own problems, how can we adapt those solutions to solve our Ghanaian problems with regards to the cinema? And those are things that we really need to take a critical look at. I think that one of the key challenge we have is that if we can solve the problem of data, having reliable data with regards to how many movies are made in a year, how many people are working in the film industry, how much money come into the industry in terms of investment, and how many are recouped or made, all these data, and even how many facilities we have. With all these data, we can be rest assured that investment would take notice of the state of the industry and would risk it. But currently, nobody would want to risk it to invest their money. As it stands now, there are so many challenges that we are facing now. We are moving because of the digital platforms that exist now. A lot of filmmakers are moving onto those platforms. And yes, the industry can't stay the same with the evolution of how things are going in terms of, a lot of people, moving on to audience, trying to reach out to audiences on social media platforms. So obviously, things won't go the way we hope it should. But what we can do at best is to see how best we can, when we identify the problems, how do we network among ourselves and, find solutions to it. And I also feel like sometimes we are not specializing enough. We have a lot of filmmakers also doing their best to occupy certain aspects of the industry. But I think as much as we can, depending on your expertise and your resources, we need to find a way of specializing in certain aspects of the industry to be able to take advantage of the business that perhaps we don't even notice, because we are all focused on perhaps churning out movies rather than looking at building the industry, the entire value chain. And that is something that we need to look at. Hopefully, one of the things that I hope that may have should come out of this National Film Dialogue they had is to also look at tax incentives for the Ghanaian film industry, not just for us locally, but to also attract much needed foreign, investment money for them to come here and shoot, work with us. We learn from them. We exchange ideas. We look at how their money coming in can support filmmakers locally and keep on happening. And yes, I must admit, there are still film productions coming from out there to Ghana to shoot. So it's still helping. But I think with the current state of the world, where a lot of film industries from different countries are giving very attractive film tax rebate, if we do not get into this particular area of business for the film industry, we are likely to face a serious challenge, and we will be left behind. I must say. So, well, there's a lot we can talk about this particular one, but I just wanted to state categorically clear that the film industry is not dead. It may not be performing the way we want it to, but it's not dead. And that is my thoughts on this issue of the Ghana film industry. So let me know what you think about this Ghanaian film industry, what you think we can do to help build the industry and make it more formidable and put this conversation of whether the film industry is dead or alive behind us. I think we should move ahead and look at the solutions that we can use to help make it better. Whatever your thoughts is, kindly leave it in the comment section below. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for joining me for this episode of the Film Mandate. I apologize for all the technical difficulties I was having and also not starting on time. And I'll do my best to start early tomorrow. So thanks so much for joining me, and I'll be coming your way again tomorrow with another exciting episode of the Film Mandate. My name is Papa Otu, and I'll see you soon.